Hello again. I know, so soon. Um, it just came to me that there's a relationship that I really want to talk about, and it sort of came off out of nowhere, so I wanted to really discuss it and really sit with it a little bit longer. And it was the obviousness of the parasympathetic nature that we have uh, when it comes to our relationship with ourselves and also with emotions, like with everybody that we're around. A majority of it gets called empathy, but parasympathetic, um, muscle, neuro, and stimulated responses when given our own kind of input, like say like it's an override of sorts. We tend to have like a relationship that deviates from all the things that usually go on inside of our body. Um, we have hidden genes or junk DNA, as it has been called, but it's a functionality. Like everything that has ever really happened within the human body and also outside of the human body, it tends to have its own coagulants. Like it has its own ability to find stability with itself and also with the surrounding, no matter what happens. There's there's this notion that something that the human body does doesn't necessarily mean that it's meant to happen. Like there's so many different correlations between um, not only problems that we face in everyday life, but we also have this underlying desire to run or to fight things, like fight off a cold, fight off a flu, and all of these other relationships that we build. And just out of the sheer amount of research ever done, there is always a considerable amount of things that are based on hypnotic or otherwise suggestive information. Like it's not because you don't have it in you to fight the flu or to fight the cold effectively. It's just when you're caught up in other processes and different mechanisms of your day-to-day life, there are so many different parts of you that kind of get lost. Like there's so many different relationships within your own body that just don't really get understood. Like they fall apart or they decay or they become corrosive or they become borderline acidic. Um, Not only because you're avoiding foods that balance you out, but you're also avoiding an awareness of a deeper level of how all of those things come together. And so, like, this is more of a, you know, like a shot in the dark, of course, but the relationship of us being so empathic or sympathetic, like our ability to adapt ourselves is really interesting. Our ability to adapt is full on levels that we usually don't know. We tend to don't consider them in our everyday life. It's like take on emotions, for example. Like if you really focus on it or you create like an environment mentally where you whatever is going on in it engages you and makes you happy. Like you can see squirrels running through a field and like tackling each other and doing Superman poses and doing the whole landing, arms stretched out, um, Scarlett Johansson poses, um, and that could make you happy. Like it can make you smile. It can actually do something for you. And of course, it's always like we talk about endorphins and the ability to bring all that stuff up. But ultimately, we are in charge of our own happiness. We're in charge of like how our body will function, um, and it's all dependent on our attitudes. Like and our motivation towards like what it is that we want. Because like anybody who's anybody if you've had a moment where you're trying to bargain with a friend, and you're giving something up in order to receive something, you realize that there's no good feeling behind that. Like even talking about that, you can get the sense that there's no good feeling behind giving something up in order to get something in return, because most of the time it's a bargain, but it's not a fair bargain. Like it's not a bargain that equally facilitates. And yeah, I can definitely see that in relationship to like muscle tension and like the body being tense, and shoulder pains, neck pains, like all of those things you ask a lot of it. Like even me, like I have like just poor posture, but when I've had a state of emotional release, like actually crying because I'm happy, or just really feeling relaxation, like really getting into like what makes me feel relaxed. And a lot of it is realizing, at least noticing, that it's not all bad. Like every bit of us being living, breathing human beings is challenges. Like we're going to face challenges every day, and every time we come to these challenges and we face them head on, it actually heals us, it grows us as people, and it's less fighting and it's less running. It's more being able to stand and being able to face what comes next, but being able to see what it is that we want next versus questioning how it's going to come about, or whether or not whatever we're doing makes sense, because ultimately it's not. Like even this, like even me talking about this, it's a flash. Like it's something that popped up and must be recorded, because there's always relationships going on. Like grass doesn't grow unless it has a relationship with dirt that's really good, and also with moisture that's really good, that's with the temperature that's really good. Like it either adapts or dies, and a lot of things on earth adapt or die. However, that doesn't have to be the only thing that you're doing. Like you can also sympathize or empathize or intuitively become very connected with other people by just letting go of what it means to try to relate with other people. Because what's relatable these days? Like it getting really cold outside, it's snowing outside, so you don't have anywhere to go, or because of the lockdowns, you don't have a whole lot of people lining up at your door to come in, or maybe you do. Like it's less about garnering an affection by force. It is more about being who you are and allowing that to take place. So very much in a relationship with ourselves, it's about that. It's about realizing all the things that are causing us to be tense, all the things that are causing us to really bounce off the walls, both in a creative sense and in a not so creative sense, in a very destructive sense. There's always this unraveling story thread that is always taking place around not only human beings but ourselves as well, because all we do is walk around and tell stories to ourselves. I mean, you can see like somebody on the street and you'll have a story about them. You can go home and hear your neighbors yelling at each other, and you're gonna come to some conclusion about that too. But ultimately, you don't know. Like, scariest thing is not knowing, and yeah, the ability to realize that every bit of like muscle work and tension in your body, like all of it has to do with just how comfortable you are in being uncomfortable, but not in a way that's helping you, not in a way that benefits you. Because it is weird, isn't it? Like, you can be somebody who's doing something that really, really puts you out, like really does a lot of damage, but you're so comfortable doing it that you can't disembark from it. Like, you can't take yourself out of it to really get you to a whole nother level in life where it's not about destroying yourself. It's not about doing something, gratuitous or to make your life better, like overdoing something, or like doing something really gross, or doing something that you really don't enjoy. Because you have that aversion, like my own aversion. But it ultimately doesn't mean anything, and it doesn't matter about what it is that we're trying to avoid, or what it is that we deem so bad about ourselves that we're willing to cripple ourselves and cripple our chances to really shine, to really get there with other people, to really come together, not only as a community, but also as people. Like, people do require people. That's why there's so many people on the planet. Like, if all of these people had no purpose, if all of these people had no reason to exist, then why be here at all? Like, for anybody, why be here at all? And yeah, there's this entire concept of seeking death, like the death of an ego, or being able to finally see past your own story, because your story could be like, oh yeah, I'm poor, or woe is me, like my friends keep leaving, or like I'm the life of the party until I'm not, and then I'm all alone and I feel pitiful. Like, those are the kind of stories, like, it always comes back, like, no matter what it is. Like, you could be excited about something and completely lose it. And that's that sympathetic and empathetic nature. It's almost like having a cosmic being inside of you that's consistently feeling how you feel and giving that back, like consistently giving it back. You're either going to grow up around your emotions destroying you, or you're going to grow up realizing that your default is like a rock being crushed consistently, or the rocks just piling on, and you keep avoiding them, so you're basically living amongst rocks. Or you choose to stop crushing rocks, or stop being buried in rocks, and the path that you have before you is one that hardly requires real speech to appreciate, because it's a whole nother level, because you are sympathetic or empathetic, like, or both, technically, because you're constantly in it, in the emotions, and you're constantly feeling the emotions of others. So being able to rationalize those things into something that is meaningful, or something that is going to break you or destroy you, yeah, it really comes close. Like, it continually builds not only on your body, but also on your mental state, on every bit about you. Like, all of it has so much to do with each other that, yeah, really getting the flash or the inspiration to share. And on this platform, and I'm going to share it again on another platform. And thank you for watching this far. Of course. Wouldn't continue to do these if I had, no subscribers, no one to really talk to. So, thank you. I appreciate it. Now, yeah, we wouldn't really be where we're at in this life if, first, we really had no purpose. Second, if whatever we were doing didn't really affect the world at all. And third, if our own genius ability not only to lock ourselves away in our own emotions and mental state, but also to, you know, yeah, save other people from their own by just being genuine. Like, that's a superpower. Like, there are so many people who could have just taken their lives very personally and never did anything and never went anywhere. I mean, a majority of YouTubers wouldn't be YouTubers then. A majority of, singers wouldn't be singers, and you wouldn't have your favorite songs. Movie directors wouldn't have directed really good movies. Like, whatever their niche was, they made it work, because eventually you just have to say, fuck it, and do it anyway. And yeah, a good deal of this is also to just carry that momentum of, like, fuck it, go do you. Like, go take whatever action pops up to you and see it through, both emotionally and visually. Just see it through, because you can quit every day of your life and never get anywhere, but you can quit being somebody who genuinely is always being upset or set back by yourself, because that ultimately will bury you. That ultimately will have married you, divorced you, took your kids, took your money, took your cars, took everything for ransom, and left you with nothing. And you would have nothing to show for it, really, other than, I tried on your grave. Loved by few, loved by many, but ultimately you didn't live the life that you wanted. You lived pretty much as a slave to everybody else and to what everybody else wanted, and no matter what you did, nobody was happy about what you did, and nobody wanted to see more of what you did. And yeah, to just rationalize all of that away and just be okay with the fact that you never got anywhere. You never became somebody. You never gave people the permission, the privilege to really see you for, who you really are, which I can guarantee is a lot lighter than the darkness you've been sitting with. Is so much better than the shadows that creep into your mind. That is so much better than the life that you've been living, just flat out. But I also come to a gratitude around realizing that everybody has this going on. Like, there have been quite a few people I've worked with, quite a few people, that this is going on for them as well. It might not be the same as me, it might be similar, but different. But enough people to realize that it's a phenomenon of life. We consistently do things to prolong the inevitable, to just put off becoming a victim to ourselves, to the world, to, a fate we always think, or at least assume, is looming, and the world is going to destroy itself, and the sun is going to explode. And when it comes down to it, that's like a very high amount of paranoia. Like, there's so much paranoia in it, even, that to consider, out of everything this planet has been through, that it could possibly be done in by billions of people over the course of a couple of years. I mean, granted, it totally could happen, but the relationship between us and life was never just take. There's something always being given back. However, if we really want to look at it from the point of view of our relationship, not only with ourselves but also with the world, is that if you give more of yourself than you're prepared to give at any given time, and you don't even have to be prepared, it's just forthcoming with who you really are, your heart, your beauty, your songs, your writings, your art, your anything, like literally anything, as long as you go full on into that, what is it that you're gonna get like out of it? Like, do you make people's lives better? Do you continue to promote like your own healthy creativity over, you know, worrying whether or not you're going to make it to work, or worrying whether or not you're going to survive 2022 because you survived 2021? But it's not about panicking, because panic drives desperation, it drives feelings of shame, guilt, displeasure, all of that. And definitely this conversation is mainly about what is it that fuels you all the way down to your core. Like, what do your muscles scream to you? Like, make it up. I encourage we make it up around here, as, you know, like a slogan. It'll probably show up like, yeah, I can create an entire opening around that, and a closing screen around that. But yeah, what I originally came here to talk about is, yeah, you're sympathetic and empathetic all the time, and you might as well sympathize and empathize with higher emotions, the ones you don't feel every day, because, spoiler alert, childlike glee, of which I would love to spread all over the world so that everybody can hear it and everybody can see it, like, to the point where it's so damn tangible inside themselves that it makes them cry. Like, that's the kind of impact I want, not only as a channel but as a personal individual. Like, something about childlike glee is like my most, it's such a treasure, and it's something that maybe I don't consider all that often to be a treasure. Man, now I'm crying. So just the joy of it. But that relationship, it exists with everybody, and to spread that, and just to spread an awareness through any kind of message, as long as it's your core, like it's your intent, it's the end result you are seeking, it is something that you can see the end of, and just, oh, like how palpable it can be, like when people see it, like when people enjoy it, like, because you enjoy it, like you just enjoy the idea of it. Like, even this conversation, like every conversation I have, even though it's mostly with myself and just to a camera, it's still a conversation that's taking place, and I can take it any way I want. But it's got to be for the joy of it. It's got to be for the entertainment of it. It's got to be for, yeah, the lightness of it, because there's so much darkness, there's so much compression that comes with who we are, like, really, that we tend to look away from it for too long, way too long. However, that lightness, that ability to just like reflect on the ability for you to be a child again, for you to be every bit the person that you want to be. Like, people who are the sweetest people on the planet, they're children basically, but they're not, you know, childish. They're childlike. Like, everything about life excites them. Like, every bit of like interacting with a new person is like, it's exciting, because they go with the, I don't know how it's going to go, but I want to really be with this person. I want to be in life to really enjoy it. I want to be here. And yeah, for the most part, the majority of people forget what that's like. They completely put it off, put it in the back burner, after college, after I, have a family, like after my kids move away and go do college. And man, I want to I want to introduce it like as just a concept, as a potential podcast, is just meeting with people who have that, like that glee and stuff like that. Man, even potentially amongst like older folk, like just to sit down and have a talk with them and be like, if there's something that you can impart, like just as like a genuine emotional excitement, like around life and around becoming gracefully older physically, but gentler and more aware on a level of yeah, that allowing yourself to be childlike. Like what would it be? Like what would it be? What would that advice be? And really hear what they're willing to say about it, because man, it's basic. It always, for me, like it always comes up like, fuck it, I want to do it anyway. Just like a kid, like you fall off the swing, you hurt yourself, you're like, fuck it, I'm gonna do it again. I'm gonna do it again. Like it doesn't mean I'm bad at swinging on a swing if I fall off the swing. It just means I'm mildly embarrassed and I hurt myself. Like, and note to self, don't do that. Like, and that's what we do. We just take notes of like the little things not to do, but then they become bigger and bigger over time because we again forget that our only responsibility to life and to each other is to be as genuine and as upsetting as possible, but more in the vein of an upset that is like breaking up something that has happened or continues to happen for a person. Because YouTube, video games, different types of media like music and all of that have come with a certain amount of upset, like breaking up the status of what that person has been going through and feeling alone going through. But it's not that you're alone. It's that you still sympathize and empathize in a way that leaves you there and day after day, instead of pursuing something that you actually genuinely love. Like instead of giving back to your heart, you sit down, you cry, you hurt, and you're in pain, which anybody can sympathize and empathize with. But it's coming out of that. It's coming out of that in a way that's like, you know what? I do have bad days, terrible days in which I feel like I'm a setback or I failed or I'm just lazy. But it's about being clever, being able to deliver not only on a message, but also pass on and beyond the things that other people think that you're capable of, and even that you think you're capable of, because there's a world that goes well beyond anything you could dream of and imagine, that just lies just outside of your hurt and your pain. It's just literally right outside. Yeah, the idea of grass is always greener came to me too, which is interesting. And what I find obvious about it is that, yeah, we always consider the grass to be greener for other people, but actually it's for us. Just as a food for thought, as a closeout, is what would it be like if you felt joy, your own joy, whatever brought you joy and excitement and childlike glee every day? What would that be like? What would that relationship look like? What would that genuinely be for you? Because it's the only food for thought that is worth having. and worth imagining.